Yeah, did it again. I'm just sitting here watching movies and doing all kinds of, I don't know, little cool editing things or presentation things. Getting used to this. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, I'm getting better at this. I'm going to be talking today about getting a flat tire in an airplane when you land. And it can happen when you're taxiing around too, but usually it'll happen to you. What's going on? I hear something upstairs. I don't know. I think the girlfriend must be watching me up there or something like that. Anyways, that was weird. Okay, so yeah, usually, well, you're going to notice that you have a flat tire when you land. That's usually what happens. I've had a few in my in my years of flying. I don't know exactly how many. I've kind of lost count. About 5, 6 flat tires or so, maybe 7. But it's kind of weird the first time it happens to you. After a while, it's kind of like, you got a flat tire, big deal. But don't freak out, don't panic. Never panic when you're flying because it's like usually nothing's like too crazy or that needs immediate attention. So flat tire is one of those things. So I figured I'd start off here. Oh, hey, Wrench is here too. Welcome to the show, Wrench. And you know what? I'm playing around here with my little multimedia stuff. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with a little airplane. This is a video. I forget exactly where I downloaded it from YouTube, but I'll give whoever put it up there credit. I'll put a link to it in the description below after I do my show here. And let's take a look at it landing here and getting a flat tire. Whoop, no, not that one. That comes later. Let's try this. Whoop. No. Here we go. Let's try this. Okay. All right. So there's an airplane. That was at the very end of the video. And you can see here that I'll replay it here for you in a second. But it's kind of cool that my video popped up like this. Okay, the windsock here is that little stripy orange and white thing there. So we can see for this this little video of this plane looks like a Cessna 172 or something like that. And so the way the windsock is there, that looks like about 5 knots wind. So it's not a whole lot, I'd say 5, maybe 6, 7 knots. Not a whole lot. So, and it looks like it's relatively down the runway, but you can also see all the hills and everything off in the distance. That can cause all kinds of weird currents and air currents and she knows stuff like that. So let's just watch it. This is in St. Bart's. I have no idea where St. Bart's is. I have never been there before, but I just see all these YouTube videos from St. Bart's. And let's watch this guy's landing here. Okay, here we go. So this is a really, it's an interesting airport here where when you're coming down to land on the runway, you come over, you come down this this sort of a hill type thing, and that would freak out most pilots if you haven't been exposed to that too much. But as long as you're keeping a stable approach down here, it doesn't really matter how much clearance you have behind you on the approach or beneath you on the approach. All right, let's see what this guy does. I should have my headphones on for this. Looks a little crosswindy and kind of unstable. Take the camera. I'll just shut up here. There we go.
Boys.
Okay. And there we go. There's that video. And so I'm not sure. Maybe Wrench, you can tell me if you heard any sound from that video at all. So I just got like like I said before in my last couple of shows, I'm kind of playing around with this type of presentation. And I had to get some video downloader for my computer here, but then I had to do something on the command line for my little Linux, the downloader helper thingamajiggy. And so we'll see. I don't know if I got any sound. Gonna have to start getting more professional around here. But okay, so that guy was landing, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the video again. I'm gonna do a little bit. Okay, here we go. So Wrench is telling me here that it sounds good. And then, all right, his theory is that he forced it down too fast. Okay, well, let's see. Let's watch that again. We'll see if Wrench is right. Okay, and can I do this? Okay, and I can pause. Yeah, okay. So here our guys coming down, and did he force it down too fast, according to Wrench? Possibly. But let's see. Okay. I see, and you can see how crabbed this plane is when it lands, where the longitudinal axis of the airplane, you can see right in the camera, it's pointing directly at the camera right now, but the runway's off on an angle, right? So it's landing kind of crooked. So you're going to get a bit of side loading on your landing gear. For Cessna 172, a little bit of side loading, it's not really the end of the world. It's really more of a problem for side loading on landing gear if it's a retractable gear. That can be a little bit less forgiving. But 172s are pretty good forgiving airplanes. Okay, so we are landing here. We are still crabbed, so looks like our guy here is not doing the proper crosswind inputs. Now, he could have been fooled by looking at the listening to, sometimes you'll happen, like at an airport, the wind will say, wind is blah, blah, blah at such and such a speed. So from this direction at that speed, we saw from the windsock before, it was pretty light winds, and it looked like it was right down the runway at that end of the runway. So sometimes the wind is in different, depending on what end of the runway is, it could be going totally different directions. I've had it on mild days where on one end of the runway was a headwind and the other end of the runway was the tailwind. Just sometimes it's all over the place. This could be one of these situations, but in any case, regardless of what the windsock is or whatever the control tower is telling you, you're the pilot, so you got to keep it straight. That doesn't look like it's the case here, and it might get expensive. Let's see what happens. Okay, so what happened here? Wrench could be, oh, Vanessa Kitty popped in. Hi. Yeah, so it looked like it got plunked down. That's the official pilot term, plunk, on all three wheels. You're kind of not supposed to do it. And we can also see here that it looks to me like his right wheel is just a bit off of the runway there. So something's happening with the wind, a little bit too, yeah, it's a shorter runway. It's a little bit downhill, I think, too. And something tells me the pilot's freaked out here because they're like, whoa, what's going on? And yeah, so I would have landed a little bit more on my main landing gear. And let's try this out here. Okay, we'll see what happens next. And here we go. He's like, oh, there we go. So we saw the first little bit of smoke coming off the tire there. So that means that he's probably, I don't know, if you were going to be turning it around to the left, you'd be applying a bit of left brake. So why would this be happening here too? Another thing you don't know about any of these videos you see on YouTube is like, did the brake malfunction? Was it a sticky caliper or a broke, it could be a seized caliper. It went in and seized on it, maybe. That can happen too. So I'm also looking here that if I were landing, I would want to, ideally when you're landing, you should be having pretty much full elevator there, and that looks to me like it's about a neutral elevator. That's the thing on the back. I'll show you what I'm talking about on the KD12X Mark II. Yeah, so you can see here, the guy on the back here, that should be kind of tilted. This one doesn't do it on my little cardboard cutout, but that should be tilted up. And in our plane here, it's just kind of flat neutral. So that would mean that if you had it like that, you'd have a little bit more weight on your wheels, and you probably wouldn't be as light and skidding right now. And I don't see a lot of aileron input there either for crosswind. You should have, what would I see there? If you should have, ideally, it was crabbing to the right. So let me think here. I got to think of my chair here. Okay, if I'm crabbing to the, where was it? Crabbing to the left, was it? No, it was like that. I counted one. Trying to get this all figured out in my head. It was like this. Yeah, so it was. It would be a right crosswind. Oh, let's back up here a little bit. I want to get this right. I don't want to send you down the wrong path. Okay, so here we go. He is crabbing to the right, which means that there is a crosswind from the right. And then what you would do is you do a little bit of right aileron and some left rudder to straighten it out. Okay, this makes sense now. Let's come in. Coming down, it's going that way. All right. Okay, yeah, now that would make sense. So now the wind, if it's coming from the right like that, the wind is picking up his right wing. So that would mean that he has less weight on his right wing. He should have, you should see an up aileron in there on the right wing. Well, on his right. And yeah, so no aileron inputs anyways there. And the wind's picking up his wing, giving less weight to the wheel. And so he's locking them up or putting on the brakes equally and with less, with less weight, it's going to skid. So here we go. Skidding, 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 skidding. And what you would do there, if you had your aileron into the wind, that would give more weight on that wheel, so it wouldn't be skidding. And yeah, I'm just kind of lagging here. At this point, I think he wore a hole through the tire and blew the tire at this point because it was locked up or just skidding. Yeah, it would have been locked up. And now it's pulling to the right because that tire's flat.
Boy.
There you go. Just touches the dirt there, the grass. And you can see that propeller is like, is it going to hit the dirt? I hope not. And he just kind of stuck it. So I don't think you're going to. Yeah, you can't really taxi out of that with a flat tire and then trying to go off-roading there. That's not going to work. So I'll kind of show you here too. What else we got? What would that guy's tire look like? It would be, it would be this. Okay, so I just pulled this picture off of the internet. So that's what it looks like on an airplane tire. If you lock it up and you put a big flat spot on it, you can see on this tire here, it looks like it's got 1, 2, 3, probably 4 plies on it that you can see here. And yeah, so the tires on airplanes are pretty robust. They're pretty thick. And then, yeah, so this guy on this tire here, if it was skidding a little bit more, it would just wear through the remaining plies of the tire. And then now you have a hole, pop, there goes the tire. And now you still have your brake on. And now you're skidding this and making a whole bunch of smoke. Yeah, so that's what happens if you have a tire like that. Now what happens? What do you do at that point? You're kind of stuck, and a little plane like that doesn't have enough power to taxi again. And once your plane is stuck, kind of the title of this show is isn't an airplane flat tire really an emergency? Well, it's kind of like it could turn into one. But basically, if something is an emergency, you, the pilot in command, says, "Hey, I think this is an emergency," and then you get on the radio and say, "Hey, it's an emergency." There we go. Now it's an emergency. There's going to be some paperwork, but as long as everything's fair, or as long as everything's safe, and you thought some investigator or someone will call you on the phone. It's like, "What's with this emergency you declared?" And you'll say, "I thought it was an emergency," and then they do their paperwork and they say, "Pilot in command thought it was an emergency," and you're done. That's all there is to it. So it's really nothing wrong with declaring an emergency. So you could be if you're maybe stuck in the middle of the runway, you can't taxi, talk to someone and say, "Hey, I can't taxi." So there's that. So is it an emergency? Not really, but now if you're going off the runway, and on the big jets and stuff like that, you'll see sometimes if the tires really brakes can overheat. It can cause a flat tire that way. You're melting some rubber. It can catch on fire. Anytime there's a fire, there's an emergency. Okay. Fire equals emergency instantly, no matter what. On the ground, parked, starting up, in the air, anywhere, fire is an emergency, period. So flat tire, is a slow leak an emergency? Well, if there's a chance of something, you are not in control of it 100%. Maybe you could hit a runway light or something like that, go off into a ditch. Yeah, you might need some help. So nothing wrong with that. So now, what happens if you have and so this is where it kind of gets into, are you going to declare an emergency or not? If we have, okay, I got this other thing here too, a little diagram. If you have a nose, if your nose wheel collapses, okay, that can be kind of bad. And I don't know what plane this is. I don't know. It's some airplane. It's probably just out of some book, some textbook or something. What is it? Aero Commander Beach. Kind of looks like the window looks like an Aztec or something. I don't know what that is. But anyways, yeah, so you can see here at the front, it says propeller clearance minimum 7-inch. And that would be with sitting on the landing gear, because you can see the wheels at the bottom are kind of like it's in two different configurations. Like what does it look like when there's weight on the gear? What's it look like when the weight is off? There's even so it says here propeller clearance minimum 7-inch. So what you should always know, whatever airplane you're flying, is that whatever airplane you're flying, you should know, okay, if you especially got a propeller on the front, if you have a flat tire in the front, now your propeller is getting closer to the ground, and if you're bouncing at all, then it's getting even closer, and all it takes is one little ding of the propeller and you have a prop strike. So that's not cool. If it's a commercially registered airplane, you got to rip the engine apart, take an inspection. Now, if it's not commercially registered, it's just your own private airplane, hey, you're kind of risking it. But if there's any type of propeller strike, could be in trouble, especially if it's a aluminum propeller. Then all that shock is going through the crankcase and everything, and you're probably going to want to get it inspected. But so that's one thing to consider. And so that's why if you have a nose wheel, you'll notice that if you land. I've talked to a few people that have had that happen to them. I've only had the main gear wheel go flat on me, but other people I've talked to that have had that happen, like it's you're sitting you're sitting nose down a little bit more. It takes a whole lot of power to taxi, and you have a flat tire. So at that point, come to a nice gentle stop. Don't jam on the brakes, because then you're going to bring the propeller closer to the ground. And just shut her down. That's it. And tow it off the runway. Because I had I know somebody that had it was a home built airplane or a experimental amateur built, depending on what country you're on, what you call it. But it was an airplane that had oleo or what would you call it? Kind of like a shock absorber type thing for the front wheel, and that collapsed. It was like a little seal that went, and it just collapsed down. So he thought, well, he was sitting there. He knew the nose was low, and he thought, well, I'll just taxi back to the hangar really slowly. Well, it was like that far off the ground, and it hit a little bump, and tick, 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 tick. Oh, prop strike. And you had to get a new propeller because it was like a fancy. I think you had to get a new propeller for that because it was a fancy. What would you call it? Composite, a fancy composite one. So you can't repair those or nothing. Just go get a new propeller. Very expensive. When all he could have done is just like stopped, looked at it. Ooh, I don't have much room here, and then just push it back to the hangar. Everything's fine, but he had to get a new propeller out of the deal. So, yeah, if you have a front wheel, well, let's see if I can do this here. You got your front wheel. Make sure you know. How are we doing this here? Make sure you know that this propeller clearance, and some of these things are very, very, they're very close. And then, like I've seen propeller strikes with, it was a Cirrus, I think, something with a castering nose wheel with just a, what would you call it, with a sprung steel castering nose wheel. Yeah, that I know a guy got a really expensive prop strike off of that. So you got to watch it. And so that is something to consider. And another thing too, I'll bring this up. If you see something like this on your pre-flight inspection for your airplane, don't fly it. That is not safe. That is not airworthy. And it's kind of funny because you'll, if you are taxiing with a big flat spot like that, you'll also notice, even if it's not flat, because you'll be like taxiing like a Fred Flintstone car with the wheels, and everything's going to be shaking, and landing gear's going to be shaking, and you're going to be bouncing around and stuff like that, like a Fred Flintstone car, because it's not round. So yeah, you don't want to be flying around in something like that, because that will lead to that tire right there is very close to being flat. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so there we go. There's just something I thought I would, you know what? Let's take a look at that video again. Why? Okay, and that was the end of that. Front to back, here we go. Let's review this video. I'm just going to shut up and watch it. Check it out. Okay. Yeah. So watching that again, they looked like might have came in just a little fast, landed just a bit long. Ooh, I got to jam on the brakes here. A combination of all that stuff leads to locking one up, flat spot, flat tire, and luckily, hopefully, the guy didn't hit his propeller off the grass. So, all right. So there we go. That was your pneumatic, having to do with air expert opinion. Okay. And yeah, we'll go through, looks like, we'll see what kind of comments we got here. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do we got here? Rich is talking about, seems like airless tires might be better. Skid loaders have them most of the time when I fly weekends, no one at the airport to pump you up. Yeah, so that is, I think I'm sure that there's probably some consideration why they don't have airless tires on an airplane. My guess would be that they're very heavy, be weight, and I think it'd probably just be a matter of weight for airless tires, or yeah, that'd be my main guess. We'll see, but okay, what do we got here? Yes, sounds good. Oh yeah, forced it down too fast. Yeah, I think you might have done that. Now that you mentioned that before, like yeah, that could, I would say that is a definite consideration. Yep. All right. What's Vanessa Kitty talking about here? A DC-9 pilot would always land here wanting to take the first taxi ramp on landing. He blew all the tires every landing. Every air freight cargo crew these days. Yeah. There's there. Well, it's kind of like a, I don't know if it's a pride thing or a bragging rights thing or something, but every pilot wants to get off at the first exit, like just to go, yeah, I got off at the first exit. Oh yeah, I got off at the first taxiway. Yeah, I'm that good, you know. Well, it's not that good if you're like blowing out tires on a DC-9. Yeah, that's not bragging rights. That's kind of bad airmanship. We'll say that. And then I remember seeing one guy. He just recently got his license, and he took a video of like, hey, here's me landing, and I got off at the first taxiway. And so his instructor that taught him was sitting there watching, and I was watching too. And it's like, oh yeah, it lands it, and then you can hear in the brakes chirping, and he's locking them up. He's locking them up. He's like he's jamming on the brakes to get off at the first taxiway. And his instructor said, yeah, but you had to lock up the brakes. That's no good. That was a terrible landing. So this guy that was all proud and big-headed got knocked down a little bit by his instructor. And I didn't say a word because I kind of agreed. But yeah. Yeah, you know, that's why they have multiple exits for taxiways all the way down the runway. You can take the entire thing. You're in a little plane. You got a 9,000-foot runway. You just tell them, I can't stop right now. I'm going to go another mile and a half to get off, you know, and the tower can't tell you, do you do anything? It's like, well, he thought it was safe. That also is bad airmanship. You have to do as soon as practicable. And if you ever read that, as soon as practicable, you read that all over the place in airplane literature. And as soon as practicable means as soon as safely possible. So there we go. So it's like, yeah, as soon as safely possible. So I guess if they're right, they want to sound cool and they're typing it up in their computer, it's easier to type practicable than as soon as safely possible, I guess. So if you're ever wondering, that's what it means. Okay, what else we got here? No brakes on nose wheel, even though likely has more weight on it, I guess, to keep it from cartwheeling. Yeah, that would be it. Or if you could imagine, like if you had a front nose wheel, you got one nose wheel there, and you jam it on. I guess with today's technology, you could probably have like some kind of anti-lock braking nose wheel, but I think for that too, you would have to beef up the landing gear in the front so much to handle that constant weight from braking and putting all the weight on it. And then you probably have to beef up the airframe a little bit too. Now we're getting heavier. That's probably why there's no, that would be another consideration, I think, why there wouldn't be a nose wheel or a brake on the nose wheel. And like Wrench says here, okay, if your front wheel blows, pull the yoke to your tummy and steer with your toe brakes. Yes, absolutely. Good advice. Okay. Oh, there we go. Daniel popped in too. Hey, Daniel. Redefining garden taxiing. Yeah, that's right, garden taxiing, I guess so. Off in the grass. Video clip sound was fine. Louder, only naturally near their camera. Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to start wearing my headphones when I'm doing this type of stuff. now that I think of it. If I'm gonna have a video, I'm gonna have to have my headphones. I don't want to have to. I don't know. It's like I don't want to rewatch this and go, that's terrible, and then have to re-engineer the sound, which I'm not going to do. But anyways, so Daniel can tell I'm I'm wrapping it up here soon. Great episode, Graham. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Commercial airliners lose a pound or two of rubber per tire every landing. Most airports clean runways frequently. Yep. I would tend to believe that. Probably the faster the touchdown speed of the airliner, the more rubber they would lose, because you're starting a tire from zero and instantly spinning it up to 100 miles an hour instantly like that. That's going to wear. That's right. And what else could I tell you there? Yeah, and you'll see in the touchdown zone of all the air, that's where it looks all kind of black on a cement runway. That's where they usually touch down. Yeah, the rubber from the tires going right on there, and you do have to clean them off every once in a while. So here we go. Okay, we have a fantastic question here from Wrench too. Do some people mow grass with airplane propellers? I hope not. So, well, another little thing, if you want to know about if an air this happened to one of not one of my students, but a student that I know, went to took a little excursion off the runway across the grass quite a bit. And the real question was, like, luckily there was no propeller strike. You couldn't see anything on it. There was no mud on the propeller, or it didn't look bent or anything like that. But the question is, according to Lycoming, the plane had a Lycoming engine. If you're going off into really tall grass, if the propeller RPM decreases because of being in such thick grass, that is, even though there's no damage on the propeller, that's still considered a prop strike. If the engine has been slowed down by the grass, that's still considered a prop strike, according to Lycoming, and it should be inspected. So there you go. Does everybody do that every time? Probably not. If you are a commercially registered place, yeah, you got to do it. So, okay, little tip. All right, cool. And yeah, so that's about it. Today is Friday. I'm going to be digging in the garden today. It's going to be nice, kind of an unusually warm, nice day for me in March. And going to go out there and do kind of a pre-dig on my garden and dig in some leaves and organic stuff and have some work on my tan. It's going to be a nice day here today. And yeah, and then I'll be back on Monday, hopefully with some headphones and cool videos and everything. And Super Pilotish channel is getting better every day, thanks to great viewers like you. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll just I'll be back on Monday, because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And I'm glad Wrench is in here today, because Wrench is going to see me pulling the mixture here. We're going to shut her down. Thanks for watching. Bye.